YouTube. Once again, we're talking college sports in the Deep South, where the battle cry is War Eagle. We think the SEC is probably one of the best conferences in all of college football that battles it out in the SEC West. And most of that is predicated on strong defensive lines and strong offensive line. We want to talk about real quick as we head into spring practice week number 4, the last week of spring practice. We're talking the A-Day game coming up this coming Saturday at 3 o'clock on the Plains, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn University. Make sure you're on the scene. Also, get real active in this comment section this afternoon, my fearless and true gang. We get real active. As a matter of fact, you guys help me out with content ideas based on some of the things that I see. It gives me a feel for what you guys want to hear next. All right, so when we talk about Auburn defense, one of the most notorious positions on the team is that buck linebacker. Buck defensive end, whatever you want to call it, all right? Carl Lawson, Dee Ford, and Jeff Holland just recently made this position really a lucrative position, because it turns out that one of the highest drafted players of these guys, you know, Dee Ford, Carl Lawson, and Jeff Holland, all made a name for themselves in this position. And also, too, if you want to look at the outcome of Auburn's defense, you can usually find certain stats that align when this position plays at a high level. Now, if you think about in 2014, very abysmal on defense, Carl Lawson was actually poised to be what he wound up being anyway, but because of injury, very inconsistent and not playing a lot that year. As it turns out, that particular football team, I feel if he would have been active, you know, wouldn't have allowed 26 points per game. A couple of games, team scored 40, you know. So when you fast forward to 2016, you know, Auburn riding one of the best runs in the country between their first 3 games on into Georgia. You talk about a defense that only allowed about 18 points per game. And you're talking about a defense where when you look at the stats that have to be produced, or at least the stats that correlate good defenses from the buck linebacker position, you're talking about averaging about 10 sacks per game and averaging about 14 tackles for loss. That seems to be the common denominator between Jeff Holland, Dee Ford, and Carl Lawson. All 3 of those guys produced those numbers, and all 3 of those guys, turns out, highly productive on defense, especially in the points allowed department. Kevin Steele comes along, also continuing that trend. And then you look at 2018, Nick Cole was the guy that came the closest to matching his predecessors in the buck linebacker dominance department. He had 7 tackles this year and 7 sacks this year, and then 13 tackles for a loss. Now, I say all that to say this. You know, long story short, the buck linebacker position is going to have to be as vital as it has ever been. As a matter of fact, we want to believe that we got a couple of guys that could actually fill this role, and maybe even a couple of guys that have actually been recruited that can play this very, very pivotal role. Why is this role so pivotal? Well, it creates added pressure to the quarterback, because what the buck linebacker or the buck defensive end does is it kind of has a very unique mix of a little bit of size, power, and speed that usually is a mismatch for the offensive tackle. Because if you notice, a lot of times with Jeff Holland, Carl Lawson, and Dee Ford, they just straight up beat their guy. Okay? So that's what makes this position so unique, is the quickness. It's kind of like if you remember the New York Giants from back in the day, Lawrence Taylor was probably one of the best to ever do it in this type of position. Okay? So looking at this coming up season, you got a couple of guys that could possibly play this role. My favorite actually is Nick Cole. I'm not, saying that Big Cat Bryant or Marlon Davidson or T.D. Moultrie couldn't do it, but I just tended to like Nick Cole's consistency at the position. And he really, really, down the stretch, did really well at the position before getting hurt, okay? Now, when we fast forward to 2019, you also have some guys who were recruited that will be serviceable at this linebacker / defensive end position as well. Because, I mean, you're talking about Kobe Wooten, who will be coming along. You also have Charles Moore, who could possibly, you know, make a case for this particular position, who will be coming this fall. But I'm telling you guys, this position on the defense is vitally important. I want you guys to pay attention to this going into the fall. Is when the buck linebacker position plays at a high level, that usually spells very, very good defensive statistics for the Auburn Tigers, at least it has in past time. Okay, so I don't want y'all to, I know sometimes you all get caught up, we all get caught up at the safety and, you know, the boundary cornerback and all the, you know, positions that kind of jump out at us where we can't miss. But be mindful, and if you want to go look up the stats, look at the buck linebacker position, how the defense performs when the buck linebacker has at least 7 to 8 sacks and about 10 to 15 tackles for loss. It's huge for Auburn's defense in the way they like to run the variation of the 4-3 set that they like to run, but with a hybrid defensive end. All right, so pay attention to this. It's going to be very, very important. Once again, it's Casey to go for Vernon Speak Sports, mostly talking about Auburn football and the rest of the SEC. Let's get active in this comment section, Fearless and True Gang. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel because I'm coming with something almost every single day. War Damn Eagle.